Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Big Game Bound. I'm Jack Doles. This week on the program, let's take a look at our playbook. We're going to start with the big matchups, the Browns and the Steelers, Packers and the Buccaneers, a couple legendary quarterbacks going at it, and the Bears and the Panthers, two of the surprising teams in the NFL. Our big guest, Hall of Famer Jack Youngblood, and Kenny White, the Wizard of Odds, joins us to talk a little bit about what's going on in Vegas. Two big storylines from Week 5. The biggest comes out of Dallas, where the Cowboys have lost quarterback Dak Prescott for the remainder of the season. Prescott was off to an unbelievable start. First quarterback ever to throw for 450 yards in 3 straight games. But on Sunday, he suffered a compound fracture in his ankle, had to have surgery. Cowboys are hoping he'll be able to return next season. We'll talk about Dak with Hall of Famer Jack Youngblood later in Big Game Bound. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, the Falcons have fired both their head coach, Dan Quinn, and general manager Thomas Dimitroff. Since losing in the Super Bowl, the Falcons have started the last 3 seasons 3-3, 1-7, and now 0-5. Raheem Morris takes over the coaching duties in the interim. The Falcons take on the 1-4 Vikings this week. There are a lot of great matchups in Week 6, but this is the one that I'm most excited about. Browns and Steelers at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Let's bring in our Pittsburgh Steelers correspondent, Jay Pushkar. Jay, Steelers are 4-0, but they've played perhaps the softest schedule in the league. Are they as good as their record says they are?
Well, Jack, it's just one of those things with the NFL schedule, especially early on in the first half of the season. You got to just play the teams that are in front of you, and the fact that they've already faced 2 NFC East teams in the Giants and the Eagles, and they took care of business. It's really still hard to say how good this team is, but they've taken care of business on the field. They've been able to win some games on the road already, being able to start their season at New York and picking up the W. But the fact that you have Ben Roethlisberger back, this is a veteran group, a veteran coaching staff, and so far they're passing all the colors of passing that test. 4-0. They haven't done that in almost 40 years. So the fact that they're off to this good start, we will know much more about this Steelers team in the next month. As we know, they're going to take on the Cleveland Browns this coming weekend, and then they've got a gauntlet of a road trip. They've got the Titans, they've got the Ravens, and then the Cowboys. So really, to answer your question, we'll know after Week 6 where they're going to stand moving forward.
Yeah, Chase Claypool, was it just the game of a lifetime, or does Roethlisberger have a new #1 receiver? Because he sure looks the part.
Well, he looked fantastic against the Eagles. I mean, accounting for 4 touchdowns. But the thing is with Roethlisberger and the way you're starting to sense with this team, Jack, in comparison to teams past, there's no animosity. In years past, you had the likes of a Mike Wallace, an Antonio Brown, a Le'Veon Bell, that there was a lot of selfishness in the locker room. And dating back to 2019, you haven't seen that with this group. They all want to play for each other. They all just want to win. The stats, if they're there, fantastic, but the bottom line is if they're getting W's along the way, they're thrilled. And earlier this week, Ben Roethlisberger even said, I had a chance to really see in the post-game locker room situation with Juju Smith-Schuster. His numbers weren't great against Philadelphia, but the fact is he was embracing Chase Claypool and the numbers that he was able to put up, because bottom line is they're still undefeated. They picked up another home victory, and they've got this momentum going, and that's what Juju Smith-Schuster is all about, and that's what this whole entire team is all about. Ego aside, they want to win, and they want to try to bring a championship back to Pittsburgh, and so far they're doing that with a great start through the first month of the season.
Ben sure has some great weapons on that team. He played in just 2 games last year, had 4 games here to shake off the rust. Is he still an elite quarterback?
No question about it. I think right now you're starting to see throughout the league the veteran guys, the guys that have been to Super Bowls, guys that have had playoff experience, the guys that have been playing for over 10 years or so are still flourishing in the NFL. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, the list goes on and on with the veteran quarterbacks, and Ben Roethlisberger is right there. And I think the reason why he's playing so well in the first month is the fact that he was so motivated last year when he was taken off the field against the Seattle Seahawks, and he knew his career, at least for that part of the season, was done. And so he had this internal motivation to get back on the field because he saw the talent, he saw the roster and the potential that this team is going to have not only this year but in the next year or two, that he still wanted to be a part of something special and try to capture maybe another Super Bowl championship. And I think because of that, he still has that fire in his belly that he wants to go out and continue proving to some of these younger guys too, especially with these matchups we're going to see it this weekend with Baker Mayfield. He still wants to prove to everybody, hey, I might be getting up there in age, but I can still deliver at the highest level.
Another marquee matchup this week sends Green Bay to Tampa. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady share the stage. Burke Griffin is our man in Green Bay. Burke, how much is Rodgers motivated by a head-to-head matchup like this one?
You know what, Jack? I don't think that much because it's still a team sport. As much as we want to make it out to be, the GOAT, the six-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady, and maybe the greatest skill player at the quarterback position in terms of quarterback rating, touchdown to interception ratio, Aaron Rodgers. Look, there's 22 guys out there on the field at all times. This might be the last time they face each other, unless perhaps in the NFC Championship game, if it shakes out that way. But Aaron, his motivation is still being drafted as low as he was in that first round, and he's always looking over his shoulder with something to prove.
Yeah, well, Brady was drafted even lower. Who's the MVP so far? Is it Rodgers or Russell Wilson?
Ooh, tough call. I'd say 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, no top number 1 receiver, no top number 2 receiver. You got to go with 12, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, what he's done with those weapons. Devontae Adams missed a couple of games, so of course Rodgers turns to tight end Robert Tonyan, who steps up and has 5 touchdowns and 13 receptions. How does a guy the Lions left on the scrap heap do what he's done so far in Green Bay?
Well, I think it's just the diversity of the offense. They run so many play-action passes, bootlegs, misdirection, orbit motion. I mean, Matt and Aaron have really taken this offseason and taken the bull by the horn, so to speak. Everyone wondered if there was going to be some friction and Aaron, how much say he's going to have in audibles. They go into every play with 2 options. Option A and option B. And if option A isn't there, they go to B, and they run it to perfection. And I think we've seen so far this year, look, Allen Lazard had a huge game before he got hurt. Aaron Jones carried the load. One week it could be Jamal Williams. You really don't know with this offense. Marquez Valdez-Scantling with the kind of speed, if he can shore up some of those drops. There's just so many options for Aaron to go to. A guy like Tonyan can have a 3-touchdown, huge performance.
I know a fantasy owner or two who wonders the answer to this question. How is Adams' hamstring?
I'd start him. I mean, he sent out a tweet before that Falcons Monday night game last week and since deleted it saying, well, apparently, someone else might know my body better than me. He wanted to go on the Monday night game. And if you've got him on your fantasy football team, I think it's a good bet to start Davante Adams this week.
All right, Tampa is coming off a tough loss in Chicago. Are the Packers looking over their shoulders at the Bears right now?
I don't believe so. If people said the Green Bay Packers of 2019 were the worst 13-3 team in league history, I think this Bears club is one of the weakest 4-1 teams in NFL history. They've still got issues at quarterback. They make the switch from Mitch Trubisky to Nick Foles, and they got it was a head scratcher what Brady and company did at the end of that game, but it was a defensive contest. 20-19 was your final. I think there's Green Bay and there's everybody else. Now, that doesn't mean that Chicago couldn't be a wild card and still make it into the playoffs, but with the way the NFC West is looking right now and the way the South has some teams on the rise, it's going to be a dogfight for those final couple spots, which there's an extra spot this year.
Can't say I had this game penciled in on the calendar before the season started as a game we'd spotlight on Big Game Bound, but the Chicago Bears are 4-1, and the Carolina Panthers could be the surprise of the league so far. Will Kunkel joins us from Charlotte. Will, Christian McCaffrey goes down, and the Panthers reel off 3 straight wins. What's gone right?
Well, first of all, it's your first place, Carolina Panthers. Let's get that right, because we won't be able to say that probably for too long. But Mike Davis, man, Jack, he is an angry dude. He runs angry, he runs mean, he runs rude, and he's an absolute bully. Now, he's the nicest guy in the Zoom locker room, but he's just an angry guy, and frankly, the team's playing really well together right now. It's just not Mike Davis. It's not just Teddy Bridgewater. It's the defense, it's the offense, and special teams. And this team has to play really well together to be good.
Any idea how much longer McCaffrey will be on the shelf? And does this maybe slow down the rush to get him back because they're playing so well and so is Davis?
Well, Matt Rule told us he wants to get Christian McCaffrey back ASAP. He wants to be no bones about it. He wants Christian McCaffrey on the field. But at the same time, yeah, it's nice to have Mike Davis and a second running back and a spell running back for C-Mac. But when CMC returns, it'll be interesting to see how much he's really spelled, because let's not forget he is the best running back in the league. But he's not going to be back this week for the Bears, and he's probably not going to be back the next week, but he's undergoing some tests, and we'll see, and we'll learn more day by day, frankly.
You know, a lot of successful college coaches make the move to the NFL, and it doesn't work out. Nick Saban, Chip Kelly come to mind. What have you seen from Matt Rule that makes you think he might be a home run hire?
Man, I don't know, because I don't know that he's a home run hire yet, but what I will say is that his ego's in check. And when I say that, he's always ready to admit when he's wrong. He's ready to admit he doesn't have all the answers. He tells his players, I don't have all the answers, so tell me when you guys might know something. You've been here longer than I have for most of the guys, except for the rookies, which is a lot of the defense, ironically enough. But his ego doesn't seem to get in the way. And he knows that success is fleeting at any level in football, especially the NFL. So he said that, listen, I'm as good of a father as I was to my son today, and that's it. We're as good as I was against the Falcons, that's it. Now we're about to be as good as we are against the Bears. So his ego, again, is just he's able to control it, and that's, I think the players appreciate that.
I know a coach in Detroit who could learn a thing or two from that. It appears the Panthers did their homework for this draft. Jeremy Chin, second-round pick out of Southern Illinois, leads the team in tackles. What's he brought to this defense?
Aggressiveness, downhill, fast, angry, speed, you name it. He's an absolute athlete. He's a missile on the field. He runs through dudes. He runs down dudes. He is fun to watch because he's aggressive. He's just all over the place. You don't really know where he starts, but you can always find out where he finishes because he lines up all over the field. He's certainly fun to watch.
And Will, the Bears defense has given up just one touchdown in each of its last two games. Are you taking the under in this game? And what has to happen for Carolina to make it 4 straight wins?
I'm taking the under at 44. I do like that because I do think the defenses have the ability to play pretty good in this game. For the Panthers to win, they got to do what I mentioned earlier, play 3 phases of football. I know that's coach speak, and I know it's boring, but the offense isn't great enough to have the defense be terrible, and the defense certainly isn't great enough for the offense to carry the load and vice versa. So they got to play 3 phases. They can't beat themselves. There was one game this year where they beat themselves, and it was the Bucs game, and they got blown out 31-17. They were down 21-0 at one point. But if they can take care of the ball, they're like every other team in the NFL, basically. They have a very small margin of error. They're +4, ±. So if they take care of the ball, don't beat themselves, the breaks go their way, they can end up in the playoffs, and they can be really good. But they got to win this game against the Bears and start beating some teams that they're not expected to beat. You got to beat an 0-5 Falcons team if you want to be any good. And this team, the Bears team, 4-1, maybe an overrated 4-1, but 4-1 is still 4-1. It'd be a nice win on the resume.
Last thing, Will, the Panthers made the move from Cam Newton to Teddy Bridgewater, and it's working. What is different with Bridgewater that makes this work?
So it really hasn't been Cam Newton's offense for a few years because he hasn't played in 2 years. It's really been C-Mac's offense, and now it's Joe Brady making the offense behind Teddy Bridgewater. These guys have worked before. And I was tweeting about this the other day during the game against who would they play? The Falcons. And I said, you know, the difference is Teddy Bridgewater drops back and reads the defense and then decides what to do. Where Cam, he dropped back and reacted to the defense. He didn't read them as much. And that's not to take anything away from Cam. He's one of the most exciting quarterbacks we've ever seen in our life. But it's just a different type of quarterback, and it's no wonder that Joe Brady wanted Teddy Bridgewater under center. center. And Teddy's also just an amazing leader. He has grasp of the offense. He's good in the huddle, and he has the freedom to do what he wants to do on the line of scrimmage. There was a great play against the Falcons where he motioned Curtis Samuel into the backfield on a short downage play and handed it off to him as a wide receiver in the backfield, and they got the first down. It's just something he called at the line of scrimmage. So to have that trust and to have that freedom is good, and Teddy's been awesome, and frankly, he's been the best quarterback in the NFC South right now. That can all change, Jack, so don't have everyone scream at me on social media, but he's been the best quarterback so far in the NFC South.
Our big guest on Big Game Bound this week is Hall of Fame defensive end Jack Youngblood. He was a 5-time All-Pro with the LA Rams in the 1970s and part of the Rams' second fearsome foursome. Jack joins us now from Florida. Art Shell called you a terror, a hellacious player. Is that something, Jack, that was just inside you or you picked up along the way?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that came from. I was so blessed to have two teammates when I was that first year, especially when I had Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen as my teammates, and teaching me how to play the game. They both put their arms around me at some point in time, and they told me that because my head coach did not like me whatsoever. And I don't understand why. He picked me up on the first round. So, but both of those guys put their arm around me early on in that season and said, "Son, you can play, but you got to let us teach you how to play." And I said, "Trust me, I'm all ears. I'm all eyes and ears." And that was where it all started. And then in the second year, well, the first year, Deacon got hurt. And I had to fill in those shoes. Now, I'm trying to fill in those shoes next to the greatest defensive tackle that the game has ever seen, Merlin Olsen. So I didn't want him to kill me for screwing up the deal. And that's where I learned to play and how to play.
You spent 13 seasons in the NFL trying to knock guys on their butts. Now you're helping lift them up with the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund. Is the league itself doing enough for these players from your generation?
Well, I'll be kind enough to say that they think so, but I'm not sure if the owners really understand what you're living through after you've played the game, especially after you played the game, let's say six or 8 seasons. It's awfully damaging to the body.
And so how much do you get out of helping the guys that you used to play against and play with to see them get some of the need that they have? How much does that help your heart?
You know, I really love Mike Ditkin and what he's been doing. He created this this fund that tries to help. You know, the injury aspect, the surgeries, they cause a financial issue. Thank goodness for Social Security coming along, and that helps out a bunch, but it doesn't cover all of the issues there. So Mike's got a huge heart, and I'm just glad to be a part of it and help him out.
We saw a big injury this weekend with Dak Prescott going down. You know,
that hurt me.
Yeah, there's a lot of that talk about how the Cowboys and he couldn't come to an agreement, and the franchise tag being put on Dak. Is this the kind of thing that how does this play in a locker room? How upset are players when they see this kind of a thing happen?
Well, they're demoralized tremendously. I mean, Dak was a tremendous quarterback and a great leader. I mean, he was out there, giving it 100% every snap, and that's going to be difficult in the locker room. It really is. Then somebody's got to step forward and take that position. Once one of your soldiers goes down, you got to take his place. And it's going to be interesting to see how that develops.
Is this kind of a fine line that the Cowboys have to walk here now? Because this is a guy who was about to really cash in. And now, what does that look like to players on other teams and in players in that locker room, especially players that have given up money on their current deals to make sure that Dak stuck around? What does that look like if the Cowboys don't sign him long term?
That would be demoralizing for the rest of the team, too. If they turn their heads up, they turn their backs on him, that would not be good for the whole organization, not just the team, but the whole organization.
Kenny White is the Wizard of Odds. He's an odds maker, sports market analyst. You can see him on CBS Sportsline. He's also the author and publisher of Kenny White's College Football Power Ratings. You can get that in a PDF or 3-hole binder. He predicts the final score for every college football game, basically tells you what the odds and the total should be for every game. And he joins us each week from Las Vegas. Joins us now. Kenny, the undefeated Titans were home dogs on Tuesday and clobbered the Bills. Who took a bath there, Vegas or the bettors?
Yeah, more the bettors did, Jack. There was a big wave of money for the Bills at -3. It did go to 3.5. The number came back to 3, so the books were pretty well balanced. But the general public fell in love with the Bills for the main reason that Tennessee hadn't played in over 15 days. And it felt like maybe there would be some rust there, shake off the rust. But also they had a lot of injuries because of COVID-19. Problem was the Bills had several injuries of their own, which kind of evened things out. So amazing finish to that game. The game was a lot closer than the score indicated to. So that's some things you need to look at when you're doing your handicapping and you're adjusting. I think Tennessee had 4 drives of 30 yards or less that they scored touchdowns on. So the Bills made it pretty easy for Tennessee.
Yeah, they surpassed the eye test, though. All right, we pick up the paper every Monday, and we look at the standings, and we know who's good and who's not. But I never see the standings that show the team's records against the spread. Do those exist?
There are, but not a lot. I don't think maybe in the standings. I've thought about that, too. That's a great question. I wanted to have that on my website. Standings by division, just the way they are for wins, losses, for ATS records. I've never found them any other website, but there's many websites out there that do give you each team's ATS record. Don Best Sports is a company that I work for as well, that on their website you can find ATS records for each team.
All right, so which teams have been the best against the spread this season?
Now, the Green Bay Packers are number 1. They're still undefeated, a 4-0 ATS start. There's several other teams that are off to a 3-1 start. There's 5 of them, Baltimore, Tennessee, the Chargers, Pittsburgh, and Seattle. And then I'll give you 2 that are off to a horrible start. 0-5 ATS, 2 teams, Dallas Cowboys and the New York Jets.
All right, keep that in mind when you're ready to place your bets. Chiefs lost for the first time. Bills lost for the first time on Tuesday. Now they have to play each other. Is there something you're looking for in a matchup like this that'll sway your decision for which team to bet on?
Yeah, well, mine, it comes down to my power ratings, and then I come up with a number and I compare to what the betting line is. So in these type of games, though, as a fan, what I'm looking for is which team can respond and bounce back from that type of loss, because both teams had a bad loss. The Bills may have lost by 26, but the Chiefs were a 12-point favorite, and they lost to the Raiders straight up. So that was a really bad loss, and especially at home. So I'd like to see how they rebound. It should be a very interesting game. Both teams are, top 5 in the AFC. So, yeah, looking forward to that matchup.
College season adds the Big Ten next week, the Pac-12, the MAC, and others follow shortly after that. What does that do to your power ratings now, and how can fans learn from what can fans learn from your publication?
Yeah, well, they can learn how good a team is, that's for sure. My power ratings are all based off 100 points as an average team. So I always tell people, if you get the publication, when you're watching the game and you like to get the eye test going and see who's good or bad, and you're watching your team, if you don't know how good the opponent is, how can you really tell how your team played or not? But you look at my magazine, you find out, you see the team's a 90, they're 10 points below average. Or if they're 120, they're 120 points above average. They're playing a great team. So that way you can tell how well your team played. On my website also, Jack, you can sign up for my prescription model that gives you the updated power ratings weekly and gives you the updated final scores of every game that has not been played yet. And that's only $49 for the entire year. So So basically, $4 a month, you get updated power ratings, updated scores. Through the offseason, you'd get the updated power ratings of the teams coming into the season. As soon as the schedules come out, they're updated as well.
Kenny, give us that website real quick.
It's very easy. KennyWhiteSports.com. I made it that way, Jack. KennyWhiteSports.com. Since I'm Kenny White, I could never forget it.
All right. Thanks, Kenny. Talk to you next week. That'll do it for Big Game Bound this week. We'll do it again next week. Same place, same time. Hope to see you then. Big thanks to Jay Pusker, Burt Griffin, Will Kunkel, Hall of Famer Jack Youngblood, and Kenny White. For Spencer Wheelock and our crew in Grand Rapids, I'm Jack Doles. Enjoy Week 6, and remember, no Thursday night game. The Chiefs and Bills were moved to Monday. Hope to see you again next week.